Many people who have spent time in China have come across something that seems hard to explain. The same person who was just at the dinner table, fighting to pay the bill, will turn around in a business negotiation and refuse to give an inch. Same person, same day, and they see absolutely no contradiction in that. There is an old Chinese saying, for personal favors, you give a horse. In business, you don't give a needle. This saying isn't describing a contradiction, it's explaining a logic. Once you understand it, you'll see that these two behaviors aren't in conflict at all. They're solving the same problem. To understand this, you first need to understand something about traditional Chinese society. It was built on networks of people who knew each other. Your neighbor, your relatives, people from your hometown were often also your buyers, your sellers, your business partners. And these relationships didn't end just because one transaction was over. Many of these relationships lasted decades, sometimes generations. This created a very real problem. If you handled everything like a one-time market transaction, you helped someone, they paid you, done. Relationships start to feel like a series of independent deals, not something that grows over time. But if you handled everything through personal favors, a familiar face walks into your shop. Do you give them a discount? If you don't, you seem cold. If you do, the person standing next to them wants the same thing, and your business falls apart. There was no simple answer. So, over time, Chinese society developed a solution: keep the two things completely separate. Favors stay in the world of favors. Business stays in the world of business. This wasn't just an idea people talked about. It showed up in everyday life. In the old markets of ancient China, merchants faced this situation almost every day. A familiar face walks into the shop. He knows you. The person in line behind him knows you too. Many merchants handled it like this. Inside the shop, the price was the same for everyone, no exceptions. But after the transaction, they might visit later with a small gift, or drop something off the next time they pass by. Money settled inside the shop. The relationship continued outside it. The familiar customer didn't feel dismissed, because the relationship kept going after the transaction ended. The other customers didn't feel cheated, because inside the shop, everyone was treated the same. Two systems, never running in the same room at the same time. The saying isn't telling you to be cheap or to be two-faced. It's telling you, keep these two things separate, and you can do both well. This logic was taken furthest by one of the most successful merchant groups in Chinese history, the Shangxi traders, known as the Jin merchants. You could say they built an entire business tradition around one principle. The more generous at the banquet table, the more precise in the account books. At dinner with a partner, they were completely generous, no hesitation. But back in the accounts, not a single coin could be wrong. The relationship could grow closer and closer, but the accounts had to stay clearer and clearer. People often find this confusing. If the relationship is so good, why does the accounting have to be so exact? But the Jin merchants saw it the other way around. Precisely because the relationship mattered. The accounts had to be clean. If the money ever got messy, the relationship would eventually pay for it. They kept the two systems separate, not because they lacked trust, but to protect it. No confusion in the accounts, no cracks in the relationship. At this point, someone might ask, if this is the Chinese approach, how did Western societies handle the same problem? Modern Western societies leaned more heavily on formal institutions and contracts to manage transactions, while personal relationships stayed relatively separate. Traditional Chinese society ran both systems in parallel, formal rules and personal relationship networks, side by side. Both approaches are trying to solve the same problem. They just took different paths. Neither is more advanced. Their answers shaped by different social conditions. Now go back to that scene that confused so many people. Friends at dinner. Why do Chinese people always fight over the bill? For many Chinese people, splitting the bill isn't wrong. It just means this meal ends here. But grabbing the bill, that's saying something different. It's a saying, I want to see you again. To put it in modern terms, it's like making a deposit into an invisible account, one built out of personal goodwill. More often than not, the other person will look for a chance to return the gesture, and usually more generously. That meal becomes a step forward in the relationship. Paying the bill looks like you're covering the food, but what you're really paying for is a favor that will keep going into the future. Transactions stay fair because they follow rules. Relationships stay strong because they follow a different kind of logic. Chinese people aren't confused about the difference between personal favors and business interests. Quite the opposite. They work hard to keep them separate. Favors stay in the world of favors. Business stays in the world of business. For personal favors, you give a horse. In business, you don't give a needle.